Claude by Anthropic is blowing up right now. And there's good reason for it, but there is confusion around why that actually is. So I use Claude every single day in my business, and it's the tool I keep coming back to. So today I'm going to give you the full picture on what it does, what makes it so good, and why it works so well for construction, and also where it genuinely falls short. So Claude is really a lot more than one thing. It's actually kind of three different interfaces for three different types of work. First is the chat, and this is the standard interface you'll find in the Claude browser or on the Claude desktop app, and probably something you're most used to seeing. You type a question, you get an answer. On its own, it's good for a general conversation, quick answers that don't need a lot of specific context, general research, maybe some brainstorming, or asking how something works. But if you're asking about your specific project, your contract, your specs, chat on its own doesn't know anything about your business, and so you need to give it context first, and that's where projects come in, but we'll get to that in a minute. The second interface is Cowork, and this is where you can give Claude a task, and it can go away and do that autonomously. It can do multi-step work. So think of it like handing a graduate engineer, say, here's a folder of quotes for a package of work. Go away and organize them into folders and create a spreadsheet to compare them, plus highlight anything that might be missing from the RFQ package. So Cowork can run in a sandbox environment within a specific folder on a computer, and Cowork also has a plugin system, which I'll cover alongside the skills in just a minute. And the third one is called Claude Code, which is incredibly powerful, but it is a big rabbit hole. It can run in your terminal on your computer, or you can run on the desktop app, which is actually slightly more user-friendly. It can read your entire file system, run and create scripts, build automations, connect to your data. Really, at this stage with Claude Code, the sky's the limit. And so this is what I use to build systems, like automated data collection, daily intelligence reports, workflow automation. It's incredibly powerful, but a very deep rabbit hole. And my honest take on this one is probably most of you watching don't necessarily need to learn Claude Code right now, but unless you have some free time you want to commit to it and you're genuinely interested in the technical side of things. If not, I'd actually recommend you don't go down that path, because it will distract you from the stuff that actually moves the needles on your project. And that's part of what we're building in ContractorOS, so more on that later. So projects are incredibly important for construction, and there was what can turn Claude from a generic chatbot into something that's actually useful and knows your job and your project. You can upload your key documents like your contract, your specs, relevant drawings, RFIs, and instructions about a project, maybe who the client is, what type of project it is, your role, and some of the company standards. So from that point on, every conversation inside that project has access to those documents, can follow those instructions, and you don't need to keep re-explaining what you're doing and why you're there. And projects also have something called project memory. Now, each project has its own memory where Claude automatically learns from your conversations that you've had within that project. And after a few sessions, it remembers what you've discussed, what decisions you've made, and what you're working on. And it continues to do this over time, so it can keep relevant information that it can use in future conversations. The next thing is artifacts, and this is when Claude creates something substantial and genuinely useful, like a notice letter, a daily report, a cost breakdown, a checklist. It creates an artifact, and you'll often see that pop up on the side of the chat window there. So you can download it or you can keep iterating on it. It's essentially a proper deliverable, and it's not just text that you copy and paste somewhere else. And the cool thing about artifacts is they're shared in their own folder within Claude, and you can also share them with your team. So if you generate like a daily report dashboard or something like that, you can send someone who's not on AI a link, and they can actually click that and view the dashboard, even if they're not using AI themselves. And now connectors is where Claude can connect to your external tools that you're already using. And right now there's a limited number of connectors. There's a lot, but there's ones for like Google Drive, Gmail, your calendar, Slack, Jira, Asana, and those type of things. There's not ones for everyone, and there's a lot of construction specific softwares don't have connectors yet. A few I think are in beta and working on them, but there's not a ton in there for now. So if you're looking to connect to external tools, then Claude Code is the best way to do that for now, if they have things like an open API or other ways to connect like that. Otherwise, you've got to find other workarounds, which just in general is another rabbit hole probably don't need to go down. And now the thing that really separates Claude apart and has made it genuinely useful for construction, and that's skills and plugins. And a skill is not a prompt, which I think is a bit of confusion, because a prompt is a one-off instruction, but a skill is a complete package. It's essentially a folder that contains a procedure of step-by-step process, output templates of what the result should actually look like, reference files, your company standards, your policies, projects, whatever it needs. And sometimes it can run scripts as well. So think about how you do your daily reports. You have a format, you know what sections to include, you know what level of detail the client expects. That's something a skill can capture, and so Claude can follow that exact process every time. The procedure file is essentially the brain. It tells Claude how to handle each task step by step and where to go for what information. It acts as like a router, so if you need to draft a notice, it reads the instruction on how to create a notice, and then it looks at the notice template, and then it can look at the reference files so it knows everything it needs before it goes ahead and actually creates that and follows that step-by-step instruction you've given it. So it keeps giving you the output that's focused and accurate, so you're not hoping for a good answer, but you have to define the entire workflow, references and templates to ensure you get a great answer. Now, plugins are something that work in Cowork, and I think it's essentially a step above a skill. It bundles together what could be a skill, connectors, templates, and commands into one installable package. So where a skill can handle one specific task, like change order management, a plugin can pull together several skills along with tool connections that support them. And it's a much more complete package for getting pieces of work done, and a little bit more autonomously as well. And the coolest thing about skills and plugins is they're shareable. So one person can create a skill that's really good for a certain thing and share that with someone else. And that's exactly what we're building at ContractorOS. It's a Skool community with a library of construction-specific skills and plugins built by people who've actually done the work on construction projects and off best practices. So we're building it out over time, so now's a great time to join. The link's in the description, and I'd love to see you in there. But alright, Claude is still an LLM, it's still AI, so where does it fall short? Well, like I've discussed a bit on this channel, is construction drawings. Claude is getting very good at reading drawings, and there's skills that that have been created to make it even better by using vector data rather than just looking at the drawing itself, but it's still not 100%. So if you're looking at doing it for something like a quantity takeoff, you'd be a brave person to fully trust that. It can be a step in that process that helps you get there faster, but it shouldn't be something that you fully replaces that takeoff process. And also in the chat interface, your connectors are still limited. There's not every software that has them yet. So you can't do absolutely everything you need to. Now, Cowork does have a browser option where it can take control of your browser, but I haven't found that to be super useful because it's really slow, and I find that it often crashes my browser, and so it completely ruins the whole thing anyway. Claude Code is the way to get around a lot of these things, and you can connect it to much more of your data and tools and that. But again, that's a bit of a rabbit hole to get down. That it's getting easier and easier, but there's a lot of technical nuance you need to know there so that you don't get yourself in trouble. And the other thing is that Claude's usage limit comes up really fast compared to other LLMs, but it is genuinely good. So if you're on like the $20 a month pro plan, then you'll find yourself with heavy use hitting that cap pretty quickly. So if you're using it for serious daily use, then you may need the higher tier, which is the max plan, and that gives you a ton of usage that should be sufficient for what you need. And like I said, it's still a LLM, so the hallucination risk is still real, although significantly less than what it was even a few months ago. It's still possible, and so that's what makes the cool thing about skills is you keep that human in the loop to check the work as you go. So ultimately you make the final call. So why is Claude so good for construction? Because there's a lot of good AI models out there like ChatGPT and Gemini and Grok, and the underlying models are all getting better, But what makes Claude stand out for construction isn't just the model itself, it's the system they built around it. Construction is document heavy. There's lots of contracts, specs, drawings, submittals, RFIs, data reports, correspondence, the project system lets you load a lot of that into one workspace that you can reference each time. But more importantly, construction is a process-driven industry, so the same workflows repeat across every project, and Skills is an incredibly powerful way to capture those processes so the output is consistent every time. Like, a lot of construction requires a lot of writing, say RFIs, notice letters, client emails, and the quality of Claude's written output is genuinely really strong. So projects give you the context, Skills give you the process, connectors can bring your tools to Claude, and the memory means it learns your operations over time. And that combination is what makes it incredibly powerful for construction specifically. So here's how I'd recommend starting. I would get a Claude Pro subscription, and then you can have a play creating your own skills, or you can jump into ContractorOS and download some of the ones you've pre-built and run through some of those workflows that you'll be doing throughout the day anyway. We have templates and everything in there, so you can get to the output you want as quick as possible, and that's a great way to start and learn how to use these things and fully understand and see the power of skills. What's the first task on your projects you'd want to have Claude handle?